Welcome to the 6th season of the Infamous Todd Show, with 12 episodes now behind us as of July 1st, 2019. I thought it would be fun to focus in on the 63rd show on talking about the people and situations around me that I find so hilarious. Let's call this season my version of Your Story. Goes like this. As you can tell by my white outfit, I am justbetodd@gmail.com, of innocence and purity. Years ago, my mother, frustrated with all the Infamous Todd shenanigans, asked, "Can't you just be Todd?" Poof, and I was born. When it is time to tell the stories of the people around me and those situations, Infamous Todd will take over because I cannot vouch for the accuracy of his version of your stories, which I believe he twists for the sake of humor. Even the people that are participating in those stories often stick around just to hear his version of their life. I'm told often they laugh along with his audience. I do not know, for I am just be Todd. The Infamous Todd story will be different than everyone else's version of the story. It is because they don't see it through the Infamous Todd silliness. As all day long, that version of me entertains myself because I sit back as the Infamous Todd and I watch a parade of humorous situations and incredibly amusing people around me. Believe me, most of them do not realize the gleefulness they bring into my life. Many make me happy when they come into my life each day, and a few of them make me joyful when they leave. Perspective. Believe me, I have people in my life that become ecstatic when I leave. I have people in my life that are exhausted by the time they leave me. I have always been the best son and the best friend to people that keep me at a distance. I'm on the verge of being a perfect man when hundreds, if not 1,000 miles separate me from actual friends and family. I've been saying it for years. I am like baklava, best taken in small doses. So 2 weeks ago, Michael and I went on a tour of the Midwest, asking for friends and family to meet us. Even though most of them declined or were busy, many did find time to join us, at least for a meal. I don't know how Michael survived almost 2 weeks with me in our new Jeep without leaving me on the side of the road. I had friends jokingly telling me each of them had bets on which state he was going to leave me stranded. Well, I think it was a joke. As you know, I'm battling heart failure and now onset dementia. So for me, I may be stranded right now inside some field of struggling corn trying to grow in the watered muck of a farm just outside Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I don't know. I don't care. But welcome to my imagination. If I am, I won the bet. Iowa was our first date. I don't think I would have lasted longer than the Minnesota state line when we left here. Now, I have to tell you, in the same remark I just said, I am fairly confident that the stories I tell in these shows are somewhat based in reality. If they're not, I'm sure I will get a snotty note by some of the participants in my life. It won't matter. They're only stories. That's the very definition of the word story it's a noun, plural, stories. An account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. The sole purpose of this show is to entertain you and to make you smile, to realize we are all not only surrounded by happiness, but we can often be the reason for another person's happiness, if even for a moment in time. And I want this show from now on to be one of those gentle moments that coaxes a smile inside of you, in your spirit, and perhaps in your heart. My family and friends warned me on this trip about telling their stories. So if I use the name Skylar, Jordan, or Taylor, Quinn, Bailey, or Dakota in a story, I'm covering for them because they are too embarrassed to let me use their name. The funny part, a month ago, I asked my friends and family if I could use their name on my show. And almost all of them instantly posted on Facebook, yes, yes, yes. But on the trip, I shared the story that I planned to tell, and almost every single one of them said, and this is me paraphrasing using the sentiment they shared, "Are you crazy? No effing way. You better not tell that story. I'm going to kill you if you use my name." Yep. Not a single person said, and when I told them which story I was going to tell, not one person said, "Sure, go ahead, Todd, go for it." Now you see how I got the name Infamous Todd. Few people believe half of my stories because the participants in it are usually so horrified, either that I convinced them to make such a bad decision in their life, or unlike me, they have zero intention of sharing the story that I find funny with others. So in other words, they want me to share a story, but not that story or that one. Oh, definitely, Todd, don't share that story. Wait, Todd, you cannot tell people that story. Do you ever ask somebody, would you like to go out and eat? and then you say, where? And they go, oh, just anywhere. Every suggestion. Do I go for pizza? No, I'm not in the mood for pizza. You want to go for Chinese? Oh, I'm not in the mood for Chinese. How about some chicken? Oh, I'm not in the mood. Well, then why'd you tell me? Why'd you tell me? You pick it. You decide. That's the way it is about my stories. They said I could do it until they found out which stories. I don't know what stories they thought I was going to tell. Maybe they can email me and let me know what stories that they thought were funny that I need to share on the podcast. Therefore, now you see, I'm like baklava. So the fictitious Skylar, Jordan, and Taylor are going to be the females embarrassed in my life, along with the fictitious males, which would be, Quinn, Bailey, and Dakota. They will have to take the brunt of the stories. So God forbid when I start having friends with using those names. The rest, I will assume, are still open for prey for my Tuesday at 2 podcast. Remember, Tuesday at 2, always a fresh podcast. And I remind people watching this on YouTube or social media, this is a podcast. Podcasts are not little clips. So don't be like John Baer and send me notes telling me that it needs to be only a few minutes long because YouTube people are unable to handle anything over 7 minutes. If you ever meet me, you would understand the answer to this puzzle. What does the infamous Todd call a 500-word essay? The answer? A Facebook post. I wish people would watch me on YouTube, but YouTube is not my primary venue as a podcaster. It isn't even in my top 10. Every episode of this show, I have begged people to at least hit the free subscribe button on the Infamous Todd Show YouTube page to show support. Of the 10,000 listeners, only 1% have listened and acted on me begging the past 62 shows. They don't even have to listen to it on that platform. But at least it'll show the people that are hearing impaired that that they're not the only person listening on YouTube, and that they're not alone. And I must admit, it makes me feel good that even a fraction of people listening are also watching me. I know I have about 5,000 people on the Infamous Todd Show page, also on Facebook alone. I keep forgetting about them. That is where I ask people I know to let me share their stories. Well, until this week. And then I decide I'm just going to share them. until I want to share their stories. Well, listening and watching me is also silly. People listening to me right now on the podcast do not know I am dressed right now as an angel. People listening to me and not watching the show do not know that to tell one of my Infamous Todd stories, I have to become the Infamous Todd, devil horns and all. So here it goes. When I was in college, I overstacked my classes one term with too many complicated subjects. I was flipping out the first week thinking, how am I going to pull these classes off? Maintain good grades, jog 5 miles a day, still be active as a senator in the student government, and be the president of the college's budding Young Republicans Club. Oh yes, and also work full time. Okay, so this is where I am supposed to tell you a fabulous story about me. As you can tell, I'm the Infamous Todd, also known as Todd at infamoustodd.com. And as I start to tell you this story, let me make something, I can't promise that every single story I'm going to change their names. Today I will. But perhaps in the future, I won't even ask people. That's what they get for being around me. After all, you can tell by looking at the glimmer in my eye, I'm trouble. I don't have to look for trouble. It finds me. Okay, so the story of Quinn goes like this. When I was in school, I had too many classes, and I thought, I'm going to have to drop one of these classes, or I'm going to have to figure a way to cheat. Now, if I'm going to cheat, which class is it going to be? And I couldn't figure it out until I went to my math class. Inside my math class, do you remember taking the SRA reading stuff, Aqua Group and stuff like that in high school? Perhaps you're not old enough to remember this, but it was like a learn at your own pace. So this particular math teacher said, in the back of the class, I have 6 pods, 6 cubicles open. And what happens is you're going to go through the book, and as you end each chapter, you will come up to my desk, and you will ask to take the test, 1 through 30. Well, if you come up here, I will assign a cubicle to you. You'll go over to that box that's next to the cubicles. You will take out test 1, sit in the cubicle, using your Scantron sheet. You will take that test, and when you're done with that test, you will turn it in to me, and then you will sit down and proceed to the next chapter. And I thought, really? Fabulous. So what happened is I waited it for about 2 days, and I went up to the teacher and I said, I am ready for my first test. So he said, okay, go over to the box and pull out number 1 and go over into the cubicle and take the math test. And I thought, how lazy of a teacher can you be? For a math teacher, I guess I don't have to show my homework. So I proceeded to walk over there. Now you have to remember, when I was in college, calculators weren't a big thing. But it didn't matter, because the way he had the cubicles set up, there would be no way to cheat with the calculator. And when I was in school, they didn't have cell phones and silly things like this that distracted the students. So I sat there inside the cubicle,
using the test that I just got. Oh, wait. Did I lie to you already and tell you I took only one test out of the box? No. I took two number one tests out of the box. Then one of them I put inside my clothes. I put it inside my clothes. And then I instantly went back to the teacher and said, oh, I'm not ready for this. Can I just come and do it tomorrow? And the teacher, seeing me within minutes, said, no problem. So I went back to my home after class, and I sent this test to my... Oh, that's right. I have to use a fake name because he won't let me use his real name. Really? We'll call him Quinn. Quinn for this show. People. So I sent it to Quinn. I won't tell you where because then it'll give that away. I sent it to him and he proceeded to take the test. And he sent it back to me. So he sent it back to me, and it was now completed. And when I say, for those of you who don't understand, when you send somebody, you're not sending them an email back then. That means you call them up and say, here's question number 1, here's question number 2, here's question number 3. And I had to give them all 10 of the questions, and then when he was done, he would call me back because that's how things worked back then. We didn't have damned emails and text messages. But anyway, I regress. And so he sent me the answers. So I proceeded to put them on my Scantron sheet. And back the next day, I went to school and the teacher said, oh, are you ready for your test? And I said, of course I'm ready. I'm ready to take the test. And so he said, go to the box and pull test number 1 out and find yourself in the cubicle where you shall proceed to take the test. So I worked my way over to the cubicle. And from out of my clothes, I pulled Scantron sheet number 1. And now I had all the answers. Oh, wait. Were you under the impression that I went to the box and took out test number 1? No! You're so silly. I went to the box and I got out test number 2. And I sat down and I put test 2 into my chest. And I took out test number 1, and I brought it and I put it back inside the box for the teacher to see, making a show out of it that I was putting it back. And then I proceeded to give him test number 1's answers on a Scantron sheet that I filled out with a delicious number 2 pencil. I went home. I contacted Quinn. I contacted Quinn and said, here are the 10 questions for number 2. And there, he filled them out. And the next day, I proceeded to do this over and over and over throughout the semester, 1 through test 30. I would send it off, the questions, to Quinn. And then the next day, Quinn would call me back and say, here are the answers. It worked marvelously. Now, I don't understand. I could understand why he wouldn't want me to tell the story for my part, because it would probably not look so great on me. I hate changing these names. Who came up with this changing this name stuff?
So many people on this year's road trips have stories I plan to share with you this year. Well, except for my brother Teddy's girlfriend, Roberta. She's new to the group, or at least into my life, where everyone I met has a story that I'm going to share this year. She had none. The only thing I knew about her was she was a retired sheriff. I love law enforcement. I have always respected them. If you read my novels, you even can feel my admiration. I never blamed them because my friends and I were knuckleheads. On this part of the trip, two of my brothers and Roberta met us for breakfast. To be exact, Roberta picked us up at our hotel in downtown Chicago, where we stayed for a week of our 2-week vacation for 4th of July week.
So, I get to use a name. Her name is Roberta. It's Roberta. Her name is Roberta. And, so, she picked us up. And you think of a sheriff would be following all the laws, would be on it, would be all over it. But you know what? She was a maniac driver, a maniac. You know those people who come to an intersection and then they block all three of the opposing traffic trying to get over because they feel they have to go. Oh my God, I thought I was going to die. My calves were about this big. My God, they were throbbing. Kiss the ground. Oh my God, I couldn't kiss the ground. I was too busy praying, going, God, I'm sorry. Let me back up there. She's a crazy woman, and just when I thought I couldn't handle it anymore, she went to the next one, and she jumped the curb, and she went over, and they were going in the left, and the right, and she's looking down, and she's doing, God, I thought I was gonna die, people, please help, please, don't let me drive with her anymore, oh my God, don't let me drive with her anymore.
Now, before I tell my last story of this episode, I remind you that all these shows are stored in order on infamoustodd.com. I know Apple, Google, YouTube, Facebook, and a dozen other podcast providers also keep them in order. I can't vouch for LinkedIn and almost 60 other social media platforms that my agent has me on around the world, including several in Russia. I travel quite a bit, and along the way, I have met the participants of my last story for today. Let's put it this way. You thought Quinn wanted me to hide his name? The following story has these friends absolutely freaked out that I talked about it briefly in my first novel in 2010, which was 2 Days Past Dead. But when I told them I was going to tell the entire story today, they flipped. It is funny because they made me promise not to use their name. In fact, they made me promise not to use their name while I was in the restaurant with other friends looking at me like, what story doesn't he want you to say with his name? So as he walked away to leave for the day, and I decided, I looked at the crowd and I said, okay, he's gone. I'm not going to use his name because you just heard him not to use his name, but here's the story. So now this is my story of what happened.
I was a brand new student at Sherman Middle School in Holly, Michigan. And during this time, this is when $6 Million Man was the deal. And the favorite episode going on at that time was Bigfoot. So when Bigfoot came around, everybody at the school was talking about it. Everybody, including these new kids. Well, they weren't the new kids. I was the new kid. And I stood there listening to them talk about Bigfoot, and they didn't know anything about me. And I looked at the one kid and I said, do you know why we moved to Holly? And he said, no. And I said, well, because what happened is my dad, my new dad, the guy who my mom just married, Dennis Kaczynski, he manages the Bigfoot program for Michigan. Well, Sasquatch. You don't call him Bigfoot. It's not PC. And I had them convinced. And I said, you know what? I'm going to let you come come over and see where Bigfoot lives in the woods behind our house. Well, on my way home that day, so I decided that day I was going to go down the railroad tracks on my way home. So I took the railroad tracks and I found a dead dog on the side of the railroad tracks. And I decided I was going to take it home. And so I went over to my neighbor's house. The Lights lived near us, the Light family, and their garage was open. And I went inside their garage and I borrowed some rope that they had hanging on the wall. I went back to the dog and I wrapped it around with this rope. And I hauled it all the way down the tracks, about a half mile. Pieces falling off. It was disgusting. But inside my mind, the joke was so hilarious that I had to do it. And I hauled it all the way back to the woods behind my house, and I buried it, and I had the whole weekend to set it up. And I told my friend, we'll call him Bailey. I got flies here. I told Bailey, I said, I'll let you come over, but it's going to cost you $5. And he's like, okay. Well, I got it all fixed up, and the next time I saw him, he's like, well, I have my friend Dakota and his friend want to come. And I'm like, okay, it's going to cost them $5 too. So I hauled him all the way over to my house and showed him where Bigfoot was buried. Well, what I didn't realize is that his friend Dakota decided he was going to steal one of the bones. And as we started to leave, I looked at him and he had the bone. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He goes, I'm taking this." So I lied to him. I said, they have the greatest scent. They're going to come over and it'll hunt you down and kill you. And he started crying. I wasn't prepared for him to be crying. And he started throwing a fit. And I'm like, well, go put it back. So he ran back and he put it in. And I'm like, oh my God, I hope that it doesn't pick up your scent now for disturbing its grave and come and kill you. And he was crying. And I was terrified because I knew if he brought that bone home, his parents would found the bone, think it was probably a human bone, and call the police. And I already had a reputation started already with the police department. Imagine. And so he was upset. I had to calm him down before he left. I knew that if we didn't, but in the meantime, it became my Bigfoot story. It's my Bigfoot story. It's their Bigfoot story. But Bailey and Dakota are throwing a fit about me sharing this story. At least my version of the story.
Now, I have 100 stories I want to share with you, but it's hard to share them if I have to keep begging you to remember to find me each week. If you just simply join for free, no cost, no obligation, one of the venues like YouTube, by hitting the free subscribe button, this would make the world to me. The world. Remember, I'll post new stories each week. Todd on Tuesdays at 2. Todd on Tuesdays at 2. And the same one will run all week until the next Tuesday. And the new episode for the following week will be Tuesday at 2. You can always go on infamoustodd.com to catch up on the previous 62 episodes prior to this one. But in the meantime, I want you to make it a great day.
Fabulous day, my friends. I promise your stories are safe with me. Indeed.